You want to make your dream come true, you got to stay focused. Some people rather get even than get ahead. Stay focused on where you want to go. I just kept on doing what I was supposed to do. So you've got to be willing to stay focused, to be creative, to be relentless, because things are going to happen to you when you're working on your dream. When you got an idea you want to move on, you might not have the money, you might not have the education, you might not have the support or the resources you need. What is that something that can keep us going, that will enable us to act on our dream? What's one of those keys that will begin to help us to discover the secrets to our dream? That's all I want you to do when you look at your dream. Just say to yourself every day, it's possible. Just say that every day to yourself, it's possible. Because what does that do? See, it begins to change your belief system. See, the way in which we operate, ladies and gentlemen, it's a manifestation of what we believe, what's possible for us. Whatever you've done up to this point, all that it really is a duplication, it's a reproduction of what you believe subconsciously that you deserve and what's possible for your life. Most people operate out of their personal history, out of their memory, things they've done, things they've experienced, things they've seen.
Welcome back to another exciting conversation here on Effective Living. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited because, as you guys know, I'm a proud Bahamian, y'all. I'm a proud Bahamian. I love all things Bahamas, okay? And so tonight we're kicking off a series of talks about the Bahamas, past, present, and future. And the goal is to really document our position and give light to what we believe from the seat we sit in. And so I'm joined with one of my distinguished friends and brothers who live here in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. His passion and commitment to all things Bahamian as well. He's born and raised in the Bahamas. And we're going to dive into his views on past, present, future. Welcome, Sean Smith, to Effective Living.
Thank you, Ricardo, for having me. Wow, 50 years.
Yeah.
50 years. God is definitely being good to us for me, I am right at 50, or maybe a year or two, but we can get into that. So seeing it all, being able to sit down at the feet of my grandparents and hear the stories and then going through it myself and living it, and now that aspiration of what's next, what's to come. So I am honored to be here with you this evening. Thank you for having me.
Let's into your background, growing up in the Bahamas. What was some of those? You had to be there to experience it, kind of memory.
Wow. So just a little bit about myself. I am an inner city kid. I grew up from birth to senior high school in the inner city. Bainstown, Grandstown, Farm Road area, as the old people would say. Growing up from Martin Street, attending Woodcock Primary School, then moving on to T.G. Glover, then moving on to C.C. Sweeting, attending historical St. Agnes Church. For those who know St. Agnes, my past priest would would say, Father Brown, that is, he would say, when you come over the hill, when you pass St. Agnes, you got to genuflect. You just can't pass. You got to genuflect, knowing that, you're passing St. Agnes. But growing up in that area, you had to been there. Whereas, even though I grew up in St. Agnes Church, I still attended Wesley. I still attended Bethel Baptist, where my aunt attends. St. John's Baptist Church, right there on Meeting Street as well. So growing up in that area, whoever Transfiguration Baptist, whoever was having service, you had to go. It was no ifs, ands, or but someone having service, you there. Yeah. So growing up in that time was special. It was a village. Yeah. I attended preschool. I attended St. Agnes preschool, and as a 4 or 5 year old, I walked from St. Agnes preschool home to Martin Street, which is like 4 corners down. But a 4 or 5 year old, you walking home, you had to been there. Crazy story. My aunt, my mom's sister, I was being used to someone coming and get me and picking me up, and my aunt came one day, and she was cigarette smoking, cussing. She come and cuss me out and tell me, "You're a big boy now. You gotta walk home." But I met one of my friends at that time, Shanton Ranger, who's now deceased. But she was like, "You see this little boy here? He walking home too." And so we walked from St. Agnes preschool home every day. We went to Woodcock Primary together. We went to T.G. Glover together. We went to CC together. So you build relationships because of the community. Yeah. My area was pretty rough back in the 70s, but during report card day, we went to Woodcock Primary. During report card day, bad boys would stand on the corner. And they'd look at your report card, and if you could get a good report card, they give you a little $5, a little $2. It was community. Everyone took care of community. You say where you from, like you say you from Soldier Road, they'd be like, "Oh, don't bother him. He connected." Martin Street, no. Don't bother with him. They'll come and get you. But it was so much sense of community. Wow. No matter what it was just community.
That's amazing. I mean, when you were rolling back the curtain and referencing walking to school at 4, I can remember myself, like you mentioned just now, my sister was 1 year younger than I, and I was less than 5, and she was 4, and my mom would be like, "You gotta take care of your sister." How you tell a 5-year-old you gotta take care of your sister? But I when I walked through the neighborhood, guess what? I had to take care of my sister.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Looking back at the Bahamas, the early days, there were sayings. There were clearly sayings. Now, years later, you're here in the United States, but you find yourself still leaning on some of those sayings, those principles, stuff your grandmother would have said, your parents would have said, you've heard teachers say, and you take them, and they're just as good today as they were years ago. What are some of those thoughts that come to mind? What were some of those must take with you principles, like you were like, "Hey, I learned this growing up in the Bahamas, and I can't shake it"?
I think the first one that just popped into my mind, and a lot of times I say it to confuse people, and they don't get it. My cousin, I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll tell you another phrase that kind of goes along with it. My cousin here, he would often say, but it's the same thing. I often tell people, children cry, but yet they come.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. And my cousin would always say, if you give time.
Yeah.
So, no matter how my dad would always say, or the old people would say, give you enough rope to hang yourself.
Yeah.
So they don't let you do what you want to do, but they on the end of that rope and they waiting for you. Boy,
that's such a good one, man. Those are so good. Let me give you 2 of mine while you gather a couple more. One for me was every rope has an end. That's what my grandmother said.
Yeah,
that held true to me straight to my entire life. And then another one would have been come clean, even if you got to come rough dry.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, what in the world you mean come clean? You got to come rough dry.
Oh yeah. It was just so great to. I have 8 sisters, and so I was the only boy for a long time, and so I grew up as old people children because my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents would always come and get me. So hearing those sayings and just then living them out, it's remarkable to see and now to not just see but to try to pass on some of that wisdom to the next generation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I had one and it just kind of left me, but when you finally understand, because like you said, come clean, rather than being rough dry. I just think about it. My dad would always say, I don't want you to lie to me. Don't never lie to me.
Don't lie to me. Yeah.
Tell me the truth.
Yeah.
The truth will set you free.
Yeah, that's one of them ones right there. The truth will set you free.
Truth will set you free.
Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about the cultural behavior. You've dealt with other cultures. We live here in the United States. When you think about Bahamian culture, when you think what are some of the things you're like, that's Bahamian, and the prideful factor that comes with being Bahamian. I was thinking early on. I was telling someone. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but there was pride in how you carry yourself and to be from a certain island like you or a certain part of the island and so forth. There's so many different forms of Bahamian pride. What's your view on Bahamian pride and over the years, culture and Bahamian pride?
Pride, Bahamian pride. Being a former brigader, the Boys Brigade, which was a organization that developed young men from small. Growing up in the Bahamas, you in a white shirt, blue tie, blue pants, and you fully regaled.
Yeah.
And when you leave out that house, if it's 90 degree or 95 degree, when you get back in the house, you leave a certain way, you come back a certain way. Pride. Yeah. When you walk out this house, and my captain will say, listen, you don't. And it's after the parade or whatever. When you get home is when you take off your clothes. So you don't take off your clothes in the street.
Yeah, right.
Pride. Yeah. When you could live in a cardboard house that was twists, but when you walk out, pride. Yeah. You would press. You could take your jeans and slap somebody with it. that's so stiff. That's pride. When you talk, even in school, you had a pride of they taught you all these things from young. You attended T.G. Glover, you attended Woodcock, or you attended H.O. Nash. Yep. That was pride. Yep. You don't know somebody and they get in a fight or a scuffle from someone from another school. You have to go and defend that person because that person went to your school. That was pride. Anyone could have stopped you and say, hey, listen, no. And you straighten up quick because when you walk out your house, you carry your parents' name, pride. Yeah. Your parents' name on the line. No, that's a Smith. That's Tommy nephew. Oh no, that's Gwendolyn. No, that ain't that type of boy. No. Police? No. He ain't that gangster. He from St. Agnes. Right. That pride. All that was pride that you carried along with you. No matter where you go. That you had that pride that I belong. I am somebody. I am, even though you were poor and from you had that pride to know that you held up your head and your back was always straight. That was pride that they instilled in us from small, that no matter where in the world you go, hey, he from the Bahamas. For an example, one of the things is I worked in a hotel industry here, and people would always, when they meet you, and I would, hi, how are you? Yep. Where you from? where you from?
Yeah.
That's the pride they carried along with me. So when you said the Bahamas and someone who's visited there, they light right up. Oh, I've been there. Oh, you guys are so nice. All that pride just kind of oozes up because you know that yes, I've what have been instilled in me is now carrying on. So that word pride goes a long way, and we are to our detriment our time, we are prideful. I mean, sometimes it kind of hurts us, and especially as men, but that was instilled in us from small in every facet of life, whether it's home, whether it's church, or whether it's school, or even socially. When you talk about a neighborhood you grew up in, that pride carried on and carried through.
You mentioned something just now about men and pride. Let's talk about that. Looking back and currently, with the potential of knowing that we have a lot of young men who shoulders to which the next generation will have to stand on. Let's talk about that. What were some of the deficiencies that you saw, sadly, growing up that men then didn't quite get, and clearly they're still not moving as best in the direction of what they should be getting in regards to representation, manhood? What are some of the things you like? If we have young Bahamian men watching us right now in the Bahamas, watching us on YouTube right here, if you're watching us for the first time, subscribe to this channel, share it, invite somebody else to watch. We're just having a clear, candid conversation. I've seen an experience having grown up in the Bahamas as a young man. My view of things in regards to the male man. What's your view on the male man, past and present?
The real man past, I definitely think about my dad and his brothers and my uncles. Uh, they were some. I mean, they were real men in terms of providing. They provided. They were huge in providing. Uh, they were huge in discipline. My grandfather was a district constable, and they have a alley named after him, and so he was huge on discipline. They're entrepreneurs. Even though being a district constable, he had horses at the racetrack, and this is beyond us. This is back in the day. So, but they had some stuff that they went through in terms of the race thing that we didn't have to go through it. They made it possible, to make sure that we didn't have to deal with that part of colonialism. But I think what they did, or some of the things that I see that may have been wasn't there, was that emotional touch. Now my dad took us to church. He hugged my sisters. He loved on them. When I was small, 4 to 5, he'd love on me. But when I got a certain age, that affection, my mom was there for the affection. He was you got to be, I told my mom that I was moving out at about 21, and she cried like a baby. And my dad was like, "Let him go. He's mine. Let him go." So, but it wasn't until I was older that I saw my dad with his emotions. I think a lot of men from that era have problems with showing their emotion, not so much to the women, but to the men, to their sons and to their brothers, and it's always we have a problem with just being affectionate to other men. That's considered soft. That's you soft. You're gay. You gay. They ain't showing you that, but they'll give you their heart. And one of the things that I know, if Empress listening to this, she can get me on, but they took care of other people's children, whether it was their own whether it's someone from the neighborhood, whether it's a new girlfriend or new relationship, they took care of other people's children, and that is missing today. You know, our village is kind of broken.
Wow. Wow.
Our village is kind of broken from what I can see.
What do you think? What do you think when we talk about that and this emotional disconnect that a lot of men had? I grew up in the Bahamas, as you did as well. There was definitely very little emotional connection with the male grandfather, father, uncles who would have even hugged you. There was a little pat on the head.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so, how you doing, boy? There was very little. It was always trying to push you from manning up rather than
Yeah.
getting that emotional connection. But you went ahead and said additionally that village was broken, and there was, and some people are afraid to go there and says, "Hey, why didn't we hug, and really played with our kids and make memories that were intentional memories for the development of a healthy child." When you look back and you talk about that element of brokenness in our community, we have a lot of cultural strong practices we deem good. It's really Bahamian. But some of those brokenness, some of those poor behaviors, some of the bad practices that have somewhat become dominant in our culture in the Bahamas. What would be some of those that really stands out to you today that really, for those who are watching, said, man, I'm going to be the difference in regards to what is being highlighted as a negative right now? Because there are some things that are hurting us as a culture, as a country, and it's definitely not the way forward. So what would be some of those things?
I mean, if we want to be honest, the first one right off the bat is not being able to be monogamous. You know, we wear it as a badge of pride.
Yeah.
You know, having 3 girlfriends or 4 girlfriends.
Yeah.
You know, but we don't want someone to do it to our sister, or we don't want to do someone to do it to our daughter.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, you know, you don't have to be a man by having 5 girlfriends.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, and so that helps the decline in the family, that
Yeah.
family life.
Yeah.
Not respecting yourself. I think self-respect, I mean, it goes a long way, because if I respect myself, I'm not gonna let anyone disrespect me.
Correct.
And then I'm gonna be respectful to others. And so I think that kind of is what's going on from what I can tell in terms of us being broken.
Yeah.
You know, I think for too long we've gone along with the certain ideas of manhood that really isn't back in the day. And then I think another thing is back to pride. Let me tie that in.
Yeah.
The old fellas used to tell you ghost stories so you go to bed early, eh?
Yeah.
And then they go and they sneak around and do what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays you don't get to tell ghost stories and people around doing what they're doing and people don't care.
Yeah. Wow.
If someone had an extra mile of affair that was so under the rug, you had to get a sieve to kind of figure it out and sieve it out. Nowadays it's just there. You know, we've lost that pride to, even to hide wrongdoing. Wrongdoing right now is so much in the open. You know, it's no pride to say, hey, I'm doing this wrong, and it's from the men and the women. I mean, my mom. I have a lot of sisters. My mom would always tell my sisters, Mrs. Smith, your brother go down there, he can always still be Mr. Smith, but you go there, you can be, all those bad words.
Wow.
And so women and men, they don't care to be that bad word, or they don't care what people think. They just, and that's why I say the village is broken, because you had that old grandmother or old aunt would pull you aside and say, what you over there doing? Are you crazy? But we don't get that now. And so much for some of our elk, because I won't just pass it down on the young people. We ain't listening to people. We don't have a confidant. We don't have that auntie that we know who can tell us the truth, and we can live that truth, you know. So yeah, and it ties back to what I said, pride, you know, pride.
Let's talk about education. The role of education, having brought us to where we are as a country, the role of education in the fast growing, changing world that we're currently in, uh, the role of education moving forward. You were educated in the Bahamas. I often go back to Woodcock Primary, and so that was one of the more popular schools I participated and worked with in the Bahamas, one of your previous schools. When you think about education and having grown up, you can remember your ABC days, your alphabet, your timetables, and so forth. And then you remember those days of having to learn to read and stand up in the class. And, you read a paragraph and have to pass the book to the next person. What's your view on education moving forward? And is it one of those areas where we should really take some closer look at, because you've gone through that whole entire process? What's your view there?
Education. It brings, when I say that word in talking about Woodcock and T.G. Glover and C.C. Sweeten, it just kind of, it is a warm and fuzzy feeling, because education to me, it wasn't so much as the reading and writing and the arithmetic and the history and the geography, but we had educators who taught us about life. Knowing that Woodcock Primary School started, the first principal was Dr. Walker. You remember the song, "Good morning, Mr. Walker, I come to see your daughter." Ooh, mama. So, but he was the first principal, so he used to call it Dr. Walker School. The monies for the school came from a priest, Father Walker, who was a priest at St. Agnes, gave the money to build that school. So education is always near and dear to me, but like I said, it wasn't so much the ABCs and the reading and stuff. It was having teachers who taught us about life. I think we are in the Bahamas. We value education, and we preach education, but you can be educated, but you can still be not all there. Just having common sense, and I think we've lost that part of the education value, and our kids not, I think, getting caught up in some of the new trappings of being able to think and process. Like, going back to 4 year, being 4 and walking home. Our 4-year-olds don't do that now. We're going to pick them up. Our 4-year-olds, in the schoolyard, and having to know how to interact with others, and fighting today, but the next day that person is your best friend. So it's all right to get that education and get that book smart, but we still need to pour a little bit of that common sense and some of that stuff that really kind of made us who we are. I remember one of the members of parliament for Fox Hill, can't remember his name, but he was a member of parliament for Fox Hill. Was it not great? Anyhow, back in the 80s, he was not a scholar. He was not like a Linden who went to London and studied the bar, but he was one of the smartest businessmen, and he took care of his people. So, a lot of our teachers may have not, they have had probably a teacher certificate, but they taught us so much more. They taught us so much more. And shout out to all those teachers out there, man. I mean, it's rough in this new era. And even those teachers of the past, Frida Thompson was a principal of Woodcock Primary, and Miss Saunders, her vice principal, Miss Delaveau, who is now passed as a music teacher, T.G. Glover, Miss Helen Miller. Ooh, wow. Helen Miller was former wife of Leslie Miller, one of the MPs, and wow, you said some great, Mr. Curtis, physical ed, Mr. Morse, and Miss Mary Chatham from CC Sweden, who's passed. I studied music, so Liz Thornton. Anyone in the Bahamas, when they hear the name Liz Thornton, all those guys in the police band knows what type of force she was in terms of being an educator. Lou Adams Jr., who taught me to play the trumpet, his dad played in the cat and fiddle back in the day. But like I said, Joe Biden, who was home ec teacher, he was another guy. So many Mother Pratt. I was at CC Sweden during the days of Mother Pratt. So you walking around school with your shirt out your pants, Mother pull you over. Come here, man. Let's talk. And she would talk with you. And then you fix your shirt and your pants and you try to walk. I can't let you go like that. You go in the office and get 3 or 4 cuts, and then you could go. But those persons, like I said, they didn't just teach you the book. They taught you about life. We would sit down. Rupert Gardner. I was talking to one of his frats here in Dallas who went to St. Augustine. I remember him sitting down and talking about his fraternity stories when he pledged. And that kind of was like, ooh, my cousin Keith Clare, who was an educator and from Eleuthera to Nassau. And those guys sat you down, they talked to you about life. They talked to you about what they did when they pledged and where you could, your potential, where they see you going. And they kind of plant that seed that no matter what you do in life, no one could take this education and no one could take this, and not just education, but they planted seeds of goals that you kind of look up and like, wow, can I get there? And then it can kind of, and you go back to them, and if you needed help, I mean, anything you needed, those teachers were there. One of the reasons why I think I like communicating, I like talking, Helen Miller. Helen Miller taught my sisters and myself, and I participated in a contest, and because of her saying poetry, she wrote a poem for me to say, and then I recited a poem by Susan J. Wallace, my dog, and almost won the competition. But they just taught you about life, all those type of stuff. When you look back, it's kind of like, wow, it wasn't just the book. It was so much more that they poured into you, and they kind of get you thinking about, how can I get to that next level? How can I aspire? My priest, William Thompson, Archdeacon, he would get up in the pulpit and he would tell you, I know everyone who have a bachelor's degree from 60 to now. And that inspired, wow, can I get a bachelor's degree? Can I get a master's? And not just that, but can I get to that next level? How do I get to that next level of being productive? Because that's what it was, not just your education, but how can I now leverage that and being productive in my community?
So good. Let me ask you this. We bring our talk almost to a close. I want to hear your view on where's this going, where we're going, what you project, what you foresee, what you hope to see. Bahamas, the Bahamas to come. Futuristically speaking, what would be some of the things you hope and pray will be some of the developments and way of life that will ultimately come to the islands of the So the world will know us as. Moving forward, maybe that's not who we are today, but you could see something like this coming about in the years to come. What would that look like?
Whew, that's pretty big. I always I think big, so
Yeah.
that's why I say it's pretty big.
Yeah.
My niece, I have a niece who is a upcoming gospel singer, and she just got won an award for new artist of the year. And I have a nephew who is at St. Anne's, and if anyone at St. Anne's listening, Xavier Clark, my nephew, who is upcoming, he performs. He was singing Staggerly the other day. I was listening, Cardo. I was here carrying on so bad, but that's the next BB and CC.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
you know, uh, our country in terms of sports, I think it's going to be, mark my word, we will have either a baseball team or a football team, NFL football team playing in the Bahamas in the league next 20 years. I think that we can become another Saudi Arabia if we get this with Lincoln being, I'm doing politics now, Lincoln being the sovereignty fund. But we need another Linden, Pinland, in terms of that thinking, in order to get there. And we can do it. I can see in the next 20, 30 years, someone going to space. You know, we have a Rhodes Scholar and a heart surgeon by Rhodes from, Darren Rhodes, who played, did I pronounce his first name right? Who played in the NFL from Florida State. So we have the potential of producing so much more. I looking in terms of business, the CEO of Beck, one of our childhood friends, we have the potential, but we need someone to go ahead and grab the baton, like Dr. Monroe would say. They might have to yuck it or to someone hand, but grab that baton, and we have the potential of getting there. I remember, and I'll go back to history a little bit. My dad was one of the first executive chefs in the Bahamas, and that was because of the thinking of Linden. You got a permit. The hotel got a permit for 2 years or 3 years for the executive chef to come in, and they have to train a Bahamian chef to take over after that period of time. So, all right, you could build a resort down there in Exuma, but that resort only for 10 years. After that, a Bahamian got to come and take over, right? And I think what we need to get away from is we have to get away from thinking that we have to bring other people in to do a good job. We got educated people all around the world. I got a friend in Saudi Arabia teaching. So we have the brain power. We just need the financial aspect of it, and we also need more people to believe in our own, so that I can go forward. But we have so much potential. The sky's the limit, and I think what we continue to do is, because of our proximity to America, we see all of it and we want all of it. But how do we really integrate that to keep it Bahamian? We can have that, but we want to keep it Bahamian. So how do we integrate that with, it's like a sieve, put it through the sieve, take out all the stuff that ain't Bahamian, all the stuff that may not work for our market. Used to work the Coca-Cola. I'm just gonna spurl no stuff, but Coca-Cola Puerto Rico and Coca-Cola Bahamas was different. One speaks Spanish, one speaks English. Now, culturally, we had some similarities. And it's the same thing with the United States. We got some similarities, but we also have some difference. So how do we keep our different, Bahamian, to move forward? But there is a world of potential for us to move forward into this new world. But we definitely have to be careful on how we do it and how we go about it. But there's a whole lot of potential. There's no reason why when you call Chase or Bank of America and you have no offense, but you have an Indian on the next line. Why can't it be a call bank in the Bahamas? So we have a lot of growth. We have a lot of potential to achieve some stuff, some mind-blowing stuff. Our coral reef, that's another aragonite. That's another potential that can just go sky high. This stuff with global warming, carbon, our carbon numbers. That's another potential. But we definitely need to manage it properly, But there is so much potential in terms of what we have, and the sky is still a limit, and we can do it because, and you see, every day is just incremental steps. In construction, they always say, well, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, one bite at a time, and hopefully, persons like you and I will be there to help this new era and this new world. People at home have to really be open to pass the baton on. I think that's probably one of the biggest. It's going to be one of the biggest steps. Being able to pass that baton on to someone else to carry it down the road. I see a lot of people come home from college and want to go home from college and help to pass that baton on, but the older folks, no. But we have so much to offer, so far to go to get there. But I am hopeful that we will get there in not so distant future.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we've been talking all things Bahamian. I'm joined with my friend and brother Sean Smith, past, present, and future. Listening to him, him and I, we could probably do a talk like this and dissect every aspect of the Bahamas from our standpoint, and really make a show in regards to all of the different subjects at hand. But tonight we decided to do a little talk on some of what we've experienced and some more specifically with Sean's view of where we are as a people. Sean, in closing, I'm interested in, this month being the 1st of July, the Bahamas is embarking on a big celebration in a few days, and the celebration already began. We party in the streets. We party in the streets. What do you say on this 50th year of independence to the Bahamas, to the Bahamian people? In closing, what do you say as a Bahamian, proud to know God's blessed us with 50 incredible years of independence? What do you say?
I say congratulations to the Bahamas as we celebrate. And I'm gonna go back to an old saying: God's grace is still sufficient. So as we go on to see another 50 years, we still got to take God along with us because His grace is sufficient. Let's just keep on lifting our head to the rising sun, and continue being. I think going back to being our brothers' keepers. If we get back to being our brothers' keepers, next 50 years should be bright. in the rising sun.
So good. Ladies and gentlemen, well, there you have it. Once again, happy 50th Independence celebration kicking off this entire month in the Bahamas. It's all things Bahamian moving forward. I'm in Dallas, Texas. Sean, we both here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have our flags. Our flags will be flying high. We have our flag. So, my brother, thank you so much. We will do this again, and let's make it a great evening, everyone. Sean, closing remarks. Shout out to anybody in particular.
Shout out to my mom, Beverly Taylor Smith. To my all of my sisters. Hey, happy Independence, everybody! Shout out to my folks over in St. Agnes Anglican Church, the Cathedral of the South. And to class of '89 CC Sweeten Cobras. They're always there supporting me in what I do. We have a What's Up group, so this will definitely go to them. Guys, happy Independence. We will be here, Junkanoo music. The Saxons, at least. Saxons, they come in!
Have a good night, everybody. Have a good
night, guys. Thank you for having me, guys.
God bless you.